happened. This whatever. It's like, the reality is when I talk about certain stories where there might be a press release for some kind of company, like for example, the first story we'll talk about here today, this is a nice segue into this, is about Hyundai and Kia. And of course, I think that we're well aware that Hyundai is building on Hedera, and I think that that's great. But this is a press release that talks about their carbon emission monitoring system, and there isn't really anything Hedera mentioned in the article and stuff like that. So on the surface, it's not really like a Hedera thing. We talk about stories like this all the time. We're connecting dots, we're gobbling up breadcrumbs, we're doing all these types of things. And so I think it's like, in my mind, again, the peacock coin thing. It's like there's some folks building right now on the network. And I think that, yeah, we just need to put more attention on community projects, on retail projects. I've really tried to do it because I've been, I work at Hgraph, and I have my own projects and stuff. So I'm in that same boat. So I think that that's a big thing that the community's focused on right now. But anyways, back to just some news here. Let's talk about some news, but please, community shout outs, call into the show. We'll talk about stuff. But yeah, so if people are unfamiliar with Hyundai and their use case, they're building it on Hedera. That was announced by the Hedera X account and stuff like that. So it's pretty well known. People are rumoring, or rumors are out that, what if Hyundai joins the governing council, this and that. So, yeah, there was an update from the HBAR Foundation on X that mentioned that their use case is live. So we've got movement there, which is great. And I think that some folks are, the comments on that post from the HBAR Foundation are not exactly, like hurrah. I think that there's different comments on there, but we'll continue talking about it. But just quick update, use cases. It's kind of weird talking about this stuff because it just kind of feels a little bit weird. Another good update, which is great to see, and this is something I had a brief chance to check out, was the Kabila white paper is live. Kabila, as everyone knows, a great wallet on Hedera. They're working hard on the Wallet Connect repository right now, all that good stuff. But yeah, their white paper's out, their KBL token. So not only do we have Pack token for HashPack, right? We're going to have another token for another wallet. And it's clear that there's, again, the retail side of the network, that the scale is starting to happen. The maturity of these projects and these companies are starting to happen. I was in a conversation recently. Someone asked me, what's the exit strategy for some of these projects? And it's very interesting because the concept of an exit strategy is changing, and you're seeing these startups and these smaller companies and projects just handing off control to the community, and tokenizing communities. And the idea of traditional exit strategies now, or pivots, or growth trajectories, are so different now. And not to say that these tokens are exit strategies, but it just gets me thinking of, like, when someone asks what's an exit strategy, it's like an exit strategy these days could be over a period of time, handing off control of a project to a community and setting yourself up as such. And it's just so exciting to see and even outside of Hedera, this new generation of startups and companies embracing tokenization to do these types of things. So I just think, in little ways, seeing the Pack token stuff, seeing the KBL token stuff, seeing Sauce, all these different types of things, even like I know that the Bonzo Finance pre-liquidity INO or whatever through Headstarter, like all these types of things, it's just really, really exciting to see. One thing I will talk about real quick too, as well, is Karate Combat. I think this was super cool. And I wanted to quickly share, well, maybe I won't share it yet. Maybe I'll share it at the end of the episode. But basically, May was fighting, and May, being the CEO of HashPack, was fighting in Karate Combat, won against her opponent, and apparently her opponent, it was like a super, super nice person from Hawaii, great fighter. And it was funny because the fights amongst the different influencer fight club fighters in this Karate Combat series, they weren't super trained. So the commentators were kind of, saying like, hey, these women in this fight here, like these are some amateur fighters that are trained. And the fight was like super entertaining and really, really cool. So I want to give a huge shout out to May. And I think that I was on X, I was on Twitter, all throughout that evening, just kind of like my mind was blown. Everyone probably saw my tweets and stuff. And I was just kind of like, this is really surreal, because not only was, May fighting in Karate Combat from HashPack, but also Joe Rogan showed up to Karate Combat. And on the last episode of this show, which I called Is Joe Rogan Involved and Aware? Joe Rogan is involved and aware with Karate Combat, a use case on Hedera. He's sitting right there with some comedians and stuff. And so I think that this was kind of a surreal moment, because for folks that didn't watch the whole thing, later on, the HBAR Bull came into the broadcast and was talking about use cases on Hedera and different things like that while Joe Rogan's in the room, while all this stuff's happening, everything like that. So it was kind of wild. So it's kind of surreal, but anyways, I can't not bring up the Karate Combat fight. It was just so, and like May did a shout out to the Hedera community, to the HashPack community. She won the fight, and there was even like a bonus after the fight. There was like a poll to vote for like the fight of the I guess it was like the best fight of that event, and May won that as well. So it's pretty clear the HBAR, the Hedera community, is strong. And it's clear that Karate Combat, as a use case, we've talked about this many times in the ecosystem about, what is the killer app for Hedera? What is the great use case for Hedera? Karate Combat is growing like crazy. And for folks that like don't understand the nuance with Karate Combat, it's pretty genius. Karate Combat has built or is building like a sports gambling use case, which, maybe some people don't watch sports. Maybe some people aren't all about gambling, but that is a huge market. That's a massive market that's totally in line with crypto. And you can see all the different ways it's totally in line with crypto. And Karate Combat's really smart because instead of doing traditional betting, they have it like up only. They call it up only gaming. So basically, rather than have a staking mechanism or some traditional emissions vehicle for people to, get more tokens, what Karate Combat does essentially is they just allow people to bet karate token. And if they win, new karate token gets minted for that person. And if they don't win, they don't lose any karate token. And so it's essentially a staking mechanism. It's an emissions mechanism that kind of circumvents a lot of the different challenges they would have in the space. So it's pretty smart. So I think that all in all, Karate Combat is one that I really think that I had been sleeping on for quite a while. And so I'm really glad to have been tuning into some fights, have been placing bets on some folks, and it's a great use case. The app's great. It's clear that it's gaining mass appeal. So, and again, despite whatever you think about Joe Rogan, he's got a big audience, and having folks like that at that fight is pretty crazy. So I'm going to be very interested to see what the next fight looks like. Also, something important for people to keep in mind in this ecosystem right now is an issue happening with IPFS. And I'm just going to quickly touch on it because it's a pretty in-depth topic, but it's one that I think folks should just be aware of and go read a little more. But essentially, Pluto from HashPack, the CTO of HashPack, shared some information on this. And this is a conversation I've actually had Patches on the show before from Turtle Moon. Swords Labs as well, talking about IPFS. And basically there's an issue happening right now where NFTs, and maybe I'll back this up just quickly a little bit. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but essentially what an NFT is and I'll talk strictly for Hedera because it might be less confusing. What an NFT is it's a token minted to Hedera, and the things inside of the NFT that you see are stored somewhere else. They're stored on a different system. And many of those assets, like the images and different things that you see inside your NFT, are stored on something called IPFS, the Interplanetary File System. And the idea of IPFS is to have a decentralized storage mechanism so people can store files to be easily accessed, not being controlled by a single entity. It's a great idea. It's been working really well for a long time. The problem is how incentives are aligned. And you required people's computers to give space to store these files, and you reward these people with a token. And essentially what's happened is a lot of older NFTs that have their files stored on IPFS, because those files may not be accessed often, the incentive is really low to store those files. So you end up in a situation where you go to load your NFT and see the image inside of it, and you can't see the image, even though you have the NFT. So that's been an issue, and it's been something that the community's been talking about for a bit, but now we're starting to see symptoms of it. And I mean, there are solutions, and HashPack, CentX, all different wallet providers, they're putting fixes in place, and there are solutions. So it's not the end of the world. It's just something important to be aware of. And then there are also alternatives, right? There's AR Weave, and then there's also things like Hashnell's inscriptions, where instead of using a separate network to store files, you can store the files directly on Hedera, inscribed right on the Hedera network, so you're not relying on another network. As long as Hedera exists, you can receive your file. So there's new solutions, but essentially the headline here for people to check out is there's an issue with being able to access the files stored inside of some of your NFTs. And now is a really good time to really give that extra support to creators. This isn't something that's anybody's fault. It's just the way technology goes. Sometimes things don't quite work out. There are solutions to this issue, and if we stick together, things will be okay. So the best thing to do is dive into this issue. And I'd be like, if anyone has any other questions, I'll just tag me on X, and I'm happy to chime in on it. There's lots of people who are very knowledgeable on this. But yes, there is an issue with NFTs. Broadly, again, this isn't Hedera specific. IPFS isn't Hedera specific. It's an issue that has been known, and that we're now starting to see symptoms of it. So be aware, educate. Let's find solutions, and maybe if people are interested, let me know if you want me to take a bit of a deeper dive into that topic on a later episode. We'd be more than happy to do it. Also, too, something that was neat is there's a new Chat GPT, custom GPT that was launched by Hedera. It's called the Hedera Hive Mind, and it's pretty cool. So basically, I think what they've done is they've just taken like all the Hedera documentation, information, all these different types of things, and plugged it into a custom GPT, and then you can ask it questions. So an example is like, how do I deploy a smart contract on Hedera using Hardhat? So this is handy for developers and stuff like that. And you could probably ask it simpler questions as well, but it's great to have an AI tool. And now that the custom GPTs are available for anybody for free, I would definitely go check this out. If you're building on Hedera, shout out to retail projects. Definitely go check this out. I think it would be a great tool, but clearly it's working away here. We'll continue letting the Hedera Hive Mind work away on that code for me, and I will check it out later. Let's dive into some other stuff here. Seals Q This was kind of cool. This was just a quick update on SEALSQ. There was a press release put out. We've talked about SEALSQ on the show quite a bit. They're the use case where essentially there's satellites orbiting right now. There's about 20 of them launched by SpaceX. Those satellites allow the communication between interconnected devices on Earth, and the reason they need that connection is so they can transact with each other with crypto tokens, SealCoin. And the headline here is that SEALSQ, WiseKey, and the Hashgraph Association join forces. And there's some additional partnerships, funding, yada, yada, yada. Shout out to Kamal, all that kind of good stuff. Good stuff to see. That's the headline there. The use case is progressing. And I think that's fantastic. I just wanted to highlight that. I don't want to dive into it too much. We have some important stuff to talk about on the show. Also, too, there was an interesting update on coupons. I know coupons are something that it's like a meme at this point in the ecosystem. But basically, apparently, the Coupon Bureau CEO, Brett Wilson, she sees the rollout of 8112 through Toshiba, Kroger's and Albertsons, and convenience stores in 2024. She was on a podcast. She talks about this. And we've talked about on the show how Toshiba point of sale systems, they're the number one point of sale systems in the world. They have the integration. Those Toshiba point of sale systems can talk to the Hedera network to accomplish some of these things. So it does seem like there's a bit of movement when it comes to the coupon use case. Obviously, things are going slow. And that's that. It's good to see updates on coupons. Also, too, I was on a great Spaces yesterday, just before we dive into it. And a reminder for folks, please, feel free to call into the show. I get it if this is a very new feature of the show. So if you are having any trouble calling into the show, let me know. But it gets you on video, gets you on audio, gets you on the show. I want to talk about stuff with folks. If you want to talk about community projects, if you want to talk about the HBAR Foundation stuff, call into the show. We will get to it shortly, but really quick, my conversation, I was on a Spaces yesterday, an X Spaces yesterday with King Solomon from Genfinity, and we were interviewing Neuron, which is the use case that a lot of people are aware about on Hedera. And this is another example of like a great startup. And I think that what they're doing is really interesting because a lot of people will remember Neuron as we were talking about them, months and years ago. It was really about drones, and it was about tracking drones and all those different types of things. And what they have unfolded and ultimately ended up with is this exciting, I'd say like they call it a layer 1.5, maybe you call it a protocol, but essentially it's a way for services and products to flow properly, information to flow properly. And so they're building this, everything map. And essentially, whether you're offering web design services or whether you have a sensor that's tracking air traffic, or whether you're doing some kind of delivery service or something, the idea is this is a platform that you can plug into, get that data, an API that you can utilize in your own applications to get that information without going through an intermediary. So instead of having sensors out there, having a company that manages those and going through that company to get that data and information, this is a direct line through tokenization for exchange of value and paying for these APIs on this Neuron network. And the idea is Neuron could cease to exist as a company and this would still function. So another use case where it's about handing things off, where it's about decentralizing and where it's about really utilizing the network. And it's going to be fascinating to see that. But what I would do is I would definitely encourage people to go check out that Spaces that I did with Genfinity with our conversation with Neuron yesterday. It was really great. I didn't ask a ton of questions. I was really kind of listening just because I really feel that use case has moved along so quickly and so fast. And I had a great chance to meet them last year in person and chat. Very, very great team. Very interesting use case. They're solving some really, really hard problems, which I think is really great. So I want to spend the rest of the show talking about the HBAR Foundation, and the little guy. But first, I just want to say really quick, I just want to give a shout out to supporters of the show. You know, I myself am, you know, community member. This is the Hashgraph Enthusiasts show is a little project. And it's a show that's supported strictly by viewers of the show, you know, brought to you by viewers like you. Sending HBAR to a wallet, and I sell the HBAR, and I purchase things for the show, like all the equipment and everything that I have, which is, you know, I couldn't do the show without it. Switching to video, all these different types of things. So very much appreciate people. I usually on the show, I solicit contributions. I say, hey, send HBAR to this wallet, all these different types of things. To be honest, I got enough HBAR. I made all the purchases and stuff. Right now, I'm just upgrading the show. So until the show is at a place where I'm really proud of it, I'm not going to be asking for more HBAR. I know people ask me, I'll share the wallet address, but I will be plugging the wallet address soon. But right now it's just vibes. I'm just getting the show on a new level. So I really appreciate it.